Welcome to the Literary License Podcast, European Horror Podcast, with your co-hosts Vicky Ray, Will Millar, and Keith Chalvo, exploring the genre from a unique perspective, from extreme to classic, in a world that is set to chill you to the bone.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast, and today we're discussing Les Yeux sans Visage, aka Eyes Without a Face from 1960. And before we get started, let's find out who's with us. Today we have Will Miller. Hello, Will.
Hello, gang. How are you?
Hey, Will.
And we have Vicky Ray.
Hey, guys. What's up?
And before we get started, let's talk about our roses and thorns. So, Vicky, what's your rose and thorn of the week?
Oh, God. I have so many of them. They're hard to choose. Actually, my rose, I don't really know if I have a rose, except that the sun is out lately and it's been warm and we can actually get out and I finally could get my garden going again. And just basically trying to be grateful for the little pluses in life. And my thorn would have to be internet bullies, whether you're after kids or adults or both. And you know, if you listen to this podcast, you know who you are. Chill and be kind to people. Not everybody has to agree with your ass. Thank you.
And what about yourself, Will? What's your rose and thorn?
Oh, not a lot. That was interesting, though. I don't think I've ever heard a subtweet on a podcast before. So congratulations. that worked out really well. It's actually, I'm first of all, let me just say, I'm so sorry I missed you guys last month for
Oh, we missed you too.
I love that movie, and honestly, it's something that I've watched a bunch of times, so I guess my thorn would be that I didn't get to really kind of jump in there, and you guys did a really good job.
Thank you. We missed you. You're always missed.
So yeah, that's really my only thorn. I mean, I seem to be doing pretty well as this whatever this is keeps unfolding. My one business is going really well, and then my rose, actually, a bunch of people, maybe because the quarantine or whatever, are reading a lot of my back catalog books. So
awesome.
Randomly, The Children of Judas, which nobody picked up forever. All of a sudden got this big bump on Amazon, and so I'm just happy about that. Thanks for everyone, like if somebody who's listening to the podcast read one of those books or both of them, I mean, thanks.
That's great, Will.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. So.
And my rose and thorn of the week, my rose of the week has to be the Amazon Prime new series called Upload, which I love. It's basically what's happening is it's set in the near future. And when you die, they take your subconscious and upload it into this virtual reality, which is like a new base of heaven.
Ew, that sounds creepy.
But the problem is, but it comes as a price sort of thing. And you can sit there and you can talk to the living and stuff like this, but you're going to be behind a screen. And there are ways that they can virtual reality the living into your world sort of thing. And it's kind of a murder mystery that maybe this man was murdered for the technology because it's owned by a corporation and they're making money. And the guy that dies and goes into this, basically the premise is that he's come up with an app that everyone can be able to have this kind of afterlife.
So they just upload your sustenance, your consciousness, your substance of your whatever. That just sounds
like if you die as a child, and then basically it would cost your parents basically to keep you there. But then they got this one little boy who's like been there for like 20 years, and he wants a man's body, but his parents won't buy him one because they want to remember him as he is. So there's a comedy. It's heartfelt. It's a really, really good series.
Do you know what that really, really quickly? My daughter showed this to me. They have, they got this virtual reality shit now that's just a freaking amazing. Well, there was this Chinese lady. I'd have to find the video and send it to you, but her daughter had died. She was a little girl, and they uploaded every aspect, pictures of everything. This computer assessed this little girl, and this woman put on virtual reality. I'm getting goosey bumps just thinking of it. And she sat there
Yeah.
and was talking and spending time with her dead daughter in virtual reality. Freaky shit, man. It's just, we're right there at the cusp. I'm telling you.
Well, I guess the problem basically is when you get to the point where you can't differentiate virtual reality from reality. So,
yeah.
But it's a very, very good series. I highly recommend it. It will be going for a second season. It's just been signed up for a second season. So it's called Upload on Amazon Prime. And as far as, I guess my thorn is virtual signaling. I'm just sick of it. It's like I don't see why everything has to be virtual signaling every time. You watch a TV program, it's like, oh my God, let's slam this narrative through. And it's like, I just start rolling my eyes.
Okay, give me a for instance, because you lost me.
For instance, there's a show on HBO called We're Here, where a bunch of drag queens go to a small town, basically. And they basically sit there and go, oh, it's so hard. And basically, for instance, this person, basically his parents didn't accept him because he's gay. Okay. And the drag queen goes, well, in a small town, it's like, I'm sorry, but this is not a small town problem. This is like a religion problem. So, don't try to sit there and make that all small town people in the small town are stupid and bigoted and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, but if you're in a big city and your parents are overly religious, they're probably not going to accept you being homosexual. That's just it.
Probably not.
So call things what they are and stop pigeonholing and virtual signaling and bringing down a tip. I don't like the idea that if you're going to bring people up, bring everyone up at the same time. Don't bring someone up so you can tear someone down. I hate that. So, but that's my thorn of the week. So yay. So before we get into speaking about Les Yeux sans Visage, what we're going to do is we're going to cut to Story Geek, who will tell you what you can download and what you can see from the sanctuary of your very own home during the lockdown of the COVID-19. So take it away, Story Geek.
What movies and TV shows should you be watching the week of May 11th? I'm Jay Shear, co-host of the Story Geeks podcast, and here are the movies and TV shows you can watch from home. We've got some new movies available to rent this week. Birds of Prey, I've talked about that on this show before. Another controversial DC Comics adaptation. Birds of Prey stars Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and is now available to rent. Opinions on the film vary widely. My one-word description of the film is loud. It's highly stylized, but I'm not sure it brings anything new to the genre. Personally, I didn't love it, but some of the co-hosts of the Story Geeks podcast did. Birds of Prey has a 60 on Metacritic. Blumhouse's Fantasy Island is also available for rent, a horror film about island vacationers whose fantasies become nightmares, has a 22 on Metacritic. And the last film on wide release this week, Call of the Wild, the film adaptation of the novel of the same name. It stars Harrison Ford. Call of the Wild has a 47 on Metacritic. New to streaming, The Wrong Missy, a Happy Madison comedy starring David Spade, has hit Netflix. It only has a 37 on Metacritic. But The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Kimmy vs. the Reverend, also just came out on Netflix and has an 80 on Metacritic. Fans of that show will probably dig the movie as well. Season 1 through 5 of Alias has hit Amazon Prime. And if you're in the mood for a monster movie, Peter Jackson's King Kong movie from 2005 is available on Hulu. King Kong has an 80 on Metacritic. And if you haven't seen that yet, it's definitely worth a watch. As for my pick, The Wrong Missy doesn't have a great Metacritic score, but as a fan of David Spade, I'm going to watch that anyway. This week on the Story Geeks podcast, we dig deeper into the stories driving some of our favorite video games. You can find the Story Geeks podcast on your preferred podcast provider. Until next week, this has been Jay Shear from the Story Geeks podcast, and I hope you have fun streaming movies and TV shows from home.
Hello, welcome back, and thank you, Story Geek, for that informative what to download, and I will be downloading and watching those programs this week. So, as we go into Les Yeux sans Visage, it is a 1960 film co-written and directed by Georges Franju and starring Pierre, Brasseur, and Alida, Valli, based on the novel of the same name by Jean Redon. Brasseur's character is a plastic surgeon who is determined to perform a face transplant on his daughter, who is disfigured in an auto crash. During the film's production, consideration was given to the standards of the European censors by setting the right tone, minimizing gore, and eliminating the mad scientist character. Although the film passed through the European censors, the film released in Europe caused controversy nevertheless. Critical reaction ranged from praise to disgust. The film received an American debut in an edited and dubbed form in 1962 under the title of The Horror Chamber of Dr. Faustus. In the United States, Faustus was released as a double feature with The Monster. The film's initial critical reception was not overly positive, but subsequently theatrical and home video releases improved its reputation. Modern critics praised the film for its poetic nature as well as being a notable influence on other filmmakers. I think it's also to say that the screenplay, it was written by some of our favorite screenplay writers who have actually written other films that we have covered, such as Planet of the Apes, Les Diabliques, and Vertigo, and that was Pierre Bouloux and Thomas Nersacek. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut to a trailer of Les Yeux sans Visage and also cut to Story Geek's book out that you can get for 99p during the lockdown. So take it away, Story Geek, and listen to the trailer.
Sorry for the brief interruption, but I wanted to give you a gift. This is Jay Shear, author of the Amazon top-selling time travel novel Timeslingers and co-host of the Story Geeks podcast. We just released the Kindle edition of Death of a Bounty Hunter, our new supernatural steampunk Western novel, and I'd love for you to have it. With so many of us staying at home, we wanted to give you something. So we released the book early and discounted it to just 99 cents. You can learn more at deathofabountyhunter.com, but here's Mockingbird Preacher Witch, a character from the novel, to tell you what it's about.
This isn't a story about the man-ogre with a Gatling gun for an arm, or the Taiwan sorceress covered in tattoos, or even the long-winded banker. And while the speedster idiot and the large, very funny Pinkerton detective lady do play a role, it's not about them either. You might think this tale is about the Sheriff of Jericho, a man who will do just about anything to save a loved one, including work for a secret occultish society. And then there's a woman who bears the brunt of his sins and must defend herself when she's most vulnerable. All those characters appear in the story. I do too. But it's about more than that. The one I was assigned to, the Korean bounty hunter, he's at the dead center of it all. Flint, a bounty hunter who comes face to face with something we all do. Guilt and shame. And the desire to run from them. Not because we're cowards, but because sometimes we just can't stand ourselves. It's a story about that. The Gatling guns, the occult, the paranormal, and even the demon spawn. All those are just along for the ride. Mockingbird Preacher Witch. Like I said, I'm in the story. Just read it.
Mockingbird Preacher Witch is voiced by Anastasia Washington in the full cast audiobook coming out later this summer. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy this gift from us to you while you stay at home. To get the Kindle edition for just 99 cents, visit deathofabountyhunter.com. That's deathofabountyhunter.com.
Pourquoi mens-tu? Depuis le temps que je te connais, je lis sur ton visage. Dis-moi la vérité.
Les gens n'approfondiront pas. Ils ne chercheront pas à savoir ce qui se passe ici, surtout.
Mais que se passe-t-il dans cette mystérieuse ville-là? Inspecteur Parot?
Je vous remercie de nous avoir avertis.
Pourquoi les miroirs de cette étrange demeure sont-ils masqués de noir? Que cherche-t-elle? Le reflet de ses yeux, de son visage.
Edna, elle s'est échappée.
Historique.
J'ai rendez-vous avec une amie. Je vous dirai demain.
Demain, il sera trop tard, mon petit.
Edith Scobb, dont vous connaîtrez enfin le visage en venant voir notre prochain spectacle, Les Yeux sans visage.
Hello, welcome back to the Literary License Podcast, and we're discussing Les Yeux sans Visage, or AKA Eyes Without a Face from 1960. So, Will, what are your thoughts of this film?
To do a whole hour just Alida Valli. Alida Valli is, she's Louise in the movie. She's basically the keeps everything going, and she's been in like 100. She's been in a bunch of movies that we've talked about. Suspiria, I guess, being the big one. But she was kind of like in the 20s. She was a talented Angelina Jolie. Like, just there's something about. Just honestly, I could talk about Alida for a whole hour. But this movie's amazing, and it's really funny to me that I think it says something about America that this was released as a double feature with The Manster, which is like, if you watch it, The Manster is this cartoonish, just it's a Mystery Science Theater 3000 without the little characters in the upfront, whereas Les Yeux sans Visage is honestly it's one of the greatest movies that we've touched on, and it's one of those movies that's just kind of a living work of art that sort of disguises itself as, this goofy horror movie. And to go back to what you said about even which was like the horror dungeon of Dr. Faustus or something like that. It's ridiculous the way that we treat horror as this sort of monolithic thing here in America. We can't really distinguish between high and low art. If there's like the slightest bit of gore or a boob on the screen, we all seem to degenerate into children over here for some reason. This movie's amazing. I mean, if you eliminated everything but the backdrop and just, turned that into just a moving picture of just the various forms of architecture that you're this movie. I mean, it's shot expertly, it's told expertly, it's high art that's kind of, again, sort of just, we trash these things sometimes by calling them horror movies and just equating them with something nonsensical. Anyway,
I would say it was a horror movie. But it was kind of intense, don't you think? I mean,
I would say, yeah. would say this is a gothic movie. I would say this is we talked about this with Les Diaboliques too. This is Castle Udolpho, just it's the 20th century version of it. And I think it's brilliant. I'm so glad we got a chance to do this movie.
Didn't you think that the lighting and the filming was kind of beautiful the way you can't really find much wrong with it. I couldn't.
No. It's flawless. It's amazing. Yeah. I love, and I'll say one other thing. I'll just kind of close with this on Alida Valli because you brought up the way that they shoot everything. I love how she gets her own sort of theme music every time it's just her kind of coming on. It's
what
like
was that theme? That was
music.
Comical almost.
It's calliope music. It's actually circus music. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I guess if you look at French theater anyway, doesn't French have don't they have this like a theater of freaks? I forgot what it's called.
They have. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, they have the surrealist movement, and then they have what's called the theater of cruelty. That's Anthony Narcode. And then they have the theater of the bizarre, and so there are all of these concepts within like French storytelling where they do incorporate. They're playing three-dimensional chess with a lot of the stuff that they're doing conceptually, and you can see all three of those sort of weaved into this, along with again that very strong Gothic current that goes all the way back to like Anne Rampling just there's that Gothic moving into the surrealistic current. Yeah, the word horror isn't quite right. However, I guess my point to that was that we here in the U.S. tend to just lump all horror together, which is just silly.
I'm assuming that heterograph surgery is actually a thing.
It is now. They now do face grafts. There has been a couple successful face grafts on humans now that we've had in this. The movie's kind of slightly ahead of its time as far as its medical jargon is. I think what's impressive is that the medical jargon that they're using is that it's real medical jargon and it actually means something. It's not like what you would normally get from a 1960s film that would be considered horror, that basically they kind of make up terms as they go along. This one,
they did censor them a little bit though, because they were worried about too much blood would upset the French, too many animals getting tortured would upset the English, and the Germans were worried about the mad scientist aspect of it.
Well, you got to remember that they're just getting over World War II to Germany and the mad scientists there. So
yeah, that is true.
I guess another reason, mentioning the music that they use for Valli's character, or Louise as her character name is that you got to remember that circus music is lacking depth and soul. The music is. True. And, she's got a new face, but she's soulless. She's a soulless character. So that's the reason why you have this empty kind of music for her. Okay, because there's no emotion, there's no depth to the music. It's very kind of like, collided.
Well, I was just kind of surprised by the music when they showed her, because I was like, okay, what is this? Because I'd never seen this before. So I was I knew there was a reason for it, but
I think another really interesting aspect of this film is that if you notice that there are no really long shots in this film whatsoever. Everything's done from basically the chest upwards, so that basically you can see their faces. And everyone's story is told through their eyes.
Except for the young girl whose face he keeps grafting on. But
her story is told through her eyes. The only way that actress can act is through her eyes.
It was a little bit of a thing, wasn't she?
Yeah, dainty. The thing about Edith, the actress Edith Scoob, she would actually work with this director quite a few times, and she's one of these actresses that basically is that everything she does is very understated but very emotive, and she does everything emotive through her face. And the reason why she does this is because she's actually very shy and timid in real life. And so because she says, from an interview I saw of her, that the reason why she does that is because she's so shy and timid and she took up acting, that therefore she overcompensates by using body language and her eyes because deep down inside she's very shy. And she goes, and the only way that she can draw people to her, because she can't speak out, she can't communicate very well in real life, is that she tries to do it through her body and eyes to draw people to her.
Her mask was quite unusual too. Didn't it kind of remind you of Halloween? Not Jason, but Michael Myers, kind of, sort of. I don't know.
I mean, the thing is I think that what we, I think story deals with, I guess the horror aspect would be the face grafting, but I guess what we're dealing with is a very interesting story that doesn't actually deal with a lot of conventions that we're used to. Basically, it's very telling, like the dinner sequence, basically. You got the father or the doctor, and he's got these two women with faces that he's made for them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of this awkward thing that there's no really love in the room. You have Louise, or Valli's character, who basically is heartless. You have the daughter who's overly good, and then you have the doctor who's basically not very good. I mean, at the end of the day, he doesn't love his daughter. He's overconsumed by grief, and basically he's the reason why her face is the way it is. He ruined her face. He refused. He always drove. He always refused not to drive, and he drove like a lunatic, which caused the destruction of his daughter's face. So with him doing the disfiguring of his daughter's face, he's destroying the good in his family, because that was the only good in his family. We don't know what happened to the mother. We know that the mother's gone for whatever reasons. They don't say that she died or anything like that. But if you look at the picture, and what was his thing? What did he do? Because of his grief, and he's worried about his own career and worried about his own standing in his society. What he does, he fakes her death, brings her home, makes her a prisoner, blacks out all the mirrors so that way she can never look at herself, but basically make sure that all the pictures of her looking like an angel or looking very good are there on display. So basically it's like, this is who you are, this is what, and there's nowhere for you to go. At the same time, he's actually stealing dogs to do scientific experiments, not knowing that these dogs are part of other people's families.
Did you, either one of you, I'm trying to figure out what he's actually doing to the dogs, though.
He's body grafting, he's skin grafting.
He is skin grafting.
Yeah, he's practicing skin grafts. There's something else, that we haven't really touched on yet, and that's that this movie this has happened before with Guillermo del Toro doing two movies sort of back to back that kind of inform one another, with the orphanage, or not the orphanage, but oh my goodness, Labyrinth and The Devil's Backbone, which we've done both of these. So both of those movies sort of inform each other. Okay, so Yeux sans Visage is actually released the same year as another movie by Georges Franju, also with Pierre Brasseur as a sort of as an evil doctor type. This is called it's La Tête contre la Mort, which is actually what's that?
Blood of the Beast.
Nope, Head Against the Wall. So in French, this is called La Tête contre la Mort, or Le Mort. My French is abysmal. But
I don't recall that.
Anyway.
One.
Yeah. So Head Against the Wall versus Eyes Without a Face. Pierre Brasseur is an evil doctor. They also have what's her name, Edith Scobe, as in the movie, although she's got a much smaller role, I think, in Head Against the Wall. I haven't actually seen that one, but I know it's about like a crooked lunatic asylum run by the same doctor. So literally the same director had the same guy playing a doctor in two movies released in the same year. One's chopping off people's faces. The other one's, getting into their heads and stuff like that. And he's saying something. These two movies are basically like some kind of a diptych, but obviously because Head Against the Wall is more literally like a psychological drama, whereas this is just crazy. This one kind of took off, but there is something to that.
As director does, you have to take your hats off to this director, because he deals with very strong themes against a poetic backdrop. I mean, Eyes Without a Face is a very poetic film, but if you ever
he's an artist.
And the thing is, he makes films because he wasn't your basic French director. Most French directors like Truffaut or Cocteau were basically people who would basically write about film, but they were like film critics, and they thought that they could do it better, so they would do film. This is a guy who loves film, so he didn't write about films, but he just loved films. That I can do that, and that's how he learned his art. But what's really telling, if you're ever going to see another film, there's one film that he did do, which is a short film, probably about 20-30 minutes long, called Blood of the Beast.
Okay.
And basically, it's about slaughterhouses and how they kill your meat, and basically how they kill the cows and how they kill everything. And it's very, very graphic. It's in black and white. But he does this, and he shows you the slaughterhouse, but it's cut against what's happening outside the slaughterhouses, which is children playing. So you're kind of getting this. Yeah, so you're getting this beauty of what's actually going on around the slaughterhouse against the cruelty what's going on inside the slaughterhouse. And if you look at his films in general, if you start seeing more and more of his films, you notice that behind the beauty of everything, there's this evil darkness that's always portraying. Whether the evil darkness is within your own family, within your own personality, within your own psyche. And that even though you're trying to be good, there's still evil with your deed of trying to do good. So though you may think that I might be doing good for you, doesn't necessarily mean I'm doing good for you. I might be trying to do something good, but could have a bad outcome for yourself.
Right.
And he does, and he balances these themes very, very delicately. I mean, I guess, and another thing we can say about this film is that it's very, very telling about how a director would take this film. Now, if this film was made in America, basically it would be done from the perspective of the doctor or the doctor. And basically it would be him being evil and mad and sort of thing. And this is what he's going to do because he's, it's about his craft and it's about this. But with Pierre Boulou writing the screenplay and the director being who he is, they've switched this. This is a story about the victim. He writes stories about the victim. You're following the victim. And if you look at all Pierre Boulou's things, whether it's Vertigo, Les Bals Obliques, and stuff like, or this film in general, they took the crime novel and they switched it. The crime novel was always about killer, or it was the police. Where what they do here, it's all about the victim. This is the victim. We're going to follow the victim, and this is the victim's road that we're on. And so what we get because of that is that now we got this sensitive, poetic film dealing with, the victim of Edith Squab's character as the daughter, and we're following her. We're following her journey. We're not following the doctor's journey, or the doctor's, girlfriend or previous patient who's indebted to him. That's what she is. I don't know what the relationship is, though she does act like a mother figure too. Kind of a wife
like figure. A surrogate mother kind of / jailer. But then on the other hand, with the doctor, you kind of saw, he seems like a deviant, but then you see him treating the young child, and he's giving the mother words of encouragement that they can save him. So he's kind of like a little enigma there too, because yet he can display kindness, but also the cruelty of just cutting some girl's face off that does, obviously is a prisoner. So that was kind of confusing with, intertwining his character somehow like that.
But that's American had a problem with him treating the boy like that. So that was cut in the American release.
Well, I didn't watch the American release.
So they actually cut that because they go, you can't show him sensitive. But I think the problem with the American censorships, or the American, film goer, or the people in charge of I think American film goers are a lot smarter than what they give credit them for, because if they weren't, these films would never actually be seeked out by an American audience, and American audiences tend to seek out these kind of films on their own because they don't hit the multiplexes in their uncut forms, but they do seek them out. So obviously the American public are a lot smarter than the people in power think they are. But basically, the thing is, this man is not a mad scientist or anything like that. Basically, this mad scientist is basically a person who is driven by guilt. Basically, his whole thing is about guilt. And because it's the guilt that's actually driving him forward, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad guy. You know what I mean?
A nice guy, but he's not a bad guy.
Well, the thing is he's driven by guilt. And at the end of the day, think about it. Let's sit there and say that you got your child in the car and you love your child to no bits, and basically your child is everything good. Basically, she's got plenty of friends. She's got she's getting married. She's got a future. She's bright. She's intelligent. and you cause a car accident that you're driving and you disfigure that person and you ruin that person's life.
Right.
Where would you stop about how to do about reclaiming that person's life to save your child so that way she can have some kind of similarity or some kind of life to go back to? What would you go through to do that?
Probably pretty much anything. But I mean, there is the line crossed though, where you injure other life forms in your, constant endeavor to right your wrong.
Well, I mean, if you look at a lot of your classic literature, though, it is about parents. There are kind of two stories that parenting and children kind of go through. There is the unwanted parent who basically is the bad parent, or you get the overly good parent who will do anything for their child, sort of thing. And this kind of film kind of settles itself in between those two paradoxes of stories.
Gotcha.
So, I mean. But at the same time, you don't see a lot of love for his daughter. So is he driven by love for his daughter, or is he driven by guilt for his daughter?
The whole movie's clinical. Didn't you think it was just like clinical? You were like standing outside looking at a clinic the whole time. And even the his daughter, she's very graceful, petite little thing. And I found myself fascinated watching her, even with the mask. I was really fascinated with her visage, with the mask on. Mm-hmm. And then when she took it off, and the girl in the gurney that he was obviously going to try to remove her face to apply it to hers, she obviously has a conscience, and she's actually sick of this and doesn't want to see ongoing suffering. The dogs accept her love, but yet they don't accept him when they realize they're loose. It's like, come and get it, They rip him apart.
Right.
I mean, I think another interesting aspect of this film is that. And, we kind of get this with Dave Dalibleeks as well. And we do get it with Vertical as well, is that it's the cops do not save the person. That person has to save themselves.
Yeah.
And, basically it's like, okay, the cops are there, but they're always like 10 steps behind. And I found it what makes this film interesting for me is the simple fact that you have the law, who's supposed to be on top and supposed to be protecting, and they have all the clues and they have everything to catch these people, but they're kind of like they don't seem to be top of their game, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But yet at the same time, the victim, she basically has to free herself, and she does free herself. And then you have the poetic justice of the dogs getting revenge. And then, but letting the birds go and the birds flying free is basically, it's the symbolism that she is now free to live her life, whatever that life's going to be.
Was that what you got towards the end of it? Because, okay, she's going to go out there in the world like this, and she's going to do whatever I almost. Well,
the question is that she might be jumping off a cliff.
That's what I was wondering. Is she going to walk into the ocean? Is she going to dive off a cliff? Where's she going? It's like, I hate these movies that just leave you no closure.
Yeah, I believe, hang on a second, because there is an actual answer to that. With most, again, if this is a Gothic tale, which I would say that it is, most of these movies sort of exist to explain, like, the white ghost that currently exists in the castle. So it's sort of like, it's almost like a superhero origin story for ghosts. That's what Gothic tales usually are. So you have the castle, and you have this sort of build up almost all the way to the end scene, or the end, scene in the book, whatever, which is this, sympathetic, usually female character, sort of in a state between life and death, moving through the castle in this very, iconic and archetypal way. And I believe that this story isn't meant to give you any explanation other than, hey, there's a spooky castle where a doctor used to torture people once upon a time before he got ripped apart by dogs. And if you see a ghost without a face, that's the function of the Gothic tale. It serves a different purpose. It's not everybody lives happily ever after.
No,
it's that spooky castle on the hill there. Let me tell you a story about the flickering lights that you see in the windows sometimes. That's actually where Gothic stories, that's the function that they serve. That's that's their myth theme, essentially. that's why, like, with Les Diaboliques, it's the same thing. It's very, you know, there's this story, you know that she's not going to do very well. And that castle, or that structure that she was in Les Diaboliques is going to be there. Same deal with the murder castle of Dr. Brasseur in this movie. It's going to be there. Does that make sense? That's a lot of times with these sort of ambiguous stories like that, if it's Gothic, that's why it is that way. It's following a tradition.
And it makes sense.
I guess another thing is that normally, if this was an American-made film as well, normally the cops would have come in and saved the day,
right?
And then basically it probably would have ended with her being cradled by Jacques, her fiance.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, you know, that's kind of an unrealistic ending because
that's unrealistic because
Americans can Jacques love her in the face that she has.
Americans are all about beauty. You have to be one of the beautiful people. You know, I mean, I think that most American moviegoers would want to see her have a reconstructed face and a happy epilogue and you know,
right.
You know what I mean? Because you can't leave her with a face like that after all this theatrics and drama, you know, we've got to save her kind of stuff.
Well, again, I just want to jump in. Like, we're so silly. We're so silly. We think that there's one way to tell a story.
Right.
You don't realize that there have been, like, these different traditions going back as far as storytelling goes. Who knows how many thousands of years that is. But if you read a story from, like, the Decadent era by, like, J.K. Huysmans, the story has a very different beat. And if you follow a story from, like, the noir era from, like, Robert Bloch, those stories have different beats. They have different beginnings and different endings. And not every story follows the Campbellian hero's arc. And that's what we're so used to because we're not smart. But, you know, that's it. Like, not every story functions in the way that we've become so used to receiving a story that when we get one that follows a Gothic or a romantic or a decadent or a noir beat, then we're like, it wasn't told right. Where's the happy ending? How come she's, you know, it's not,
some people are so Walt Disney, you know, and that's
exactly. So, yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, I guess that, you know, she's now in charge of her own destiny, which before, I guess, for me, the ending, you know, as with what Will say with the Gothic, but also for me, it also talks about that she's now in charge of her own destiny. So her flying off, she is free as a bird because at the end of the day, she does have a dove on her hand, as she's walking off. So she's free as a bird. That's the symbol, you know, with the symbolism. And whatever she decides to do with her life, it's going to be her decision.
Well, at least the shoplifter got away, you know, that one girl. She knew when he saw her coming into the police department with her beautiful face and everything, she was definitely going to be on the chopping block, but she made out pretty good too.
But I think the turning point mainly for Christine is that once she got the face graft and it looked like it was going okay, and then basically it started decaying, and I think that before it decayed, I think that's when she realized that even though that she's going to have the perfect face, there's no way that she's actually going to go back to the life that she once had.
Right.
Because, you know, to be honest, it's like, oh, you can go, you know, now you got your new face. You can go away. You'll have to go away. You can have a new name. You're going to have a new life. But she's not going to have the old. And I think that before that happened, before she got her new face, I think she was under the impression that she was going to be able to go back to her old life. I think that when that happened after that, she realized that, oh my God, I'm not going back to my old life. I'm going to have to become a totally different person to start all over back from scratch. And I'm not going to be the person I once was. So therefore, when the father tries to do another skin graft on her, that's why she frees the other girl. At least that's what I think, sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I would say that.
Well, there's always those life-changing moments where you choose the road less traveled or the mode, you know. I mean, things happen, and you just, you know I have in the past. Things happen, and I veer off into another path. And I suppose that, you know, this is a severe, you know, life-altering situation, though. Can you imagine how she felt? Because she's basically held prisoner, and her father is just taking faces and skin off of other women's faces. And how could you feel about wearing a face of a dead woman, you know? Because literally they're going to die. I don't know why I even tried to keep them alive.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's very, very telling because when the girl, Edith, the one that face gets grafted on to Christine's face, is that, you know, she's running through the house. I have to say that that's probably the best cut evening, you know, surgical gown that she's wearing as she's running through the house.
Right.
But,
Kidding.
But at the same time, this is what's quite interesting. So the more times you view this, the more times you start picking up, you start looking beyond what you're supposed to be seeing. And when she throws herself off out of the window, if you notice the room that she's in, the doll's face is smashed in.
Right.
The place is torn up. So obviously Christine, as you know, even with the mask on, that basically the hostility is a lot more deeper than what we've seen, what we've shown. I mean, we do get the opening scene when we're introduced to her, and she's telling her father it's basically it's because of you that I look like this. It's you sort of thing, and that you have caused this.
How old do you think her character was?
She's quite a passive character. So I guess we didn't realize that she's passive now, but obviously she went through this transitional period where she wasn't as passive as what we're seeing at this point in time.
How old do you think her character is? Young 20s?
Yeah, I would sit there and probably say about 20. To be honest, though, I mean, she was engaged to get married, so she could be as young as 18, 19. She could be just out of school.
Right. I was just wondering, like I said, she's such a small little thing. She just looks very young to be engaged and going through. Well, yeah,
but the thing is, I'm thinking like in 1960s, women tend to be engaged from like 18 to between 18 and 20, 21. After 21, you started becoming an old maid. By the time you're 25, you're an old maid. So, so I know, but so she might have been somewhere between 18 to 21. Who knows? I mean, normally women most women would, you know, they didn't really go to school. They came from money. They kind of went from school to marriage sort of thing. So, and her fiance was a practicing, you know, a training doctor. So,
right. So that she was all hooked up actually before all this happened.
Yeah, sort of thing. But yeah. So I guess we'll go to our final thoughts. So Will, what are your final thoughts of Yeux sans Visage?
Okay. So do you guys think Louise is the mom? Because they were talking about you don't?
I don't know. I think she says they don't really say what happens to the mom, and she comes across as kind of a caretaker / surrogate mother.
Yeah, she's a surrogate mother, but she's not Christine's mom. She doesn't
seem that loving.
No, she's a patient of the doctor's.
That's why she wears the choker.
And he saved her face, because the scar.
Yeah,
he saved her face. I don't know if
I'll just say this: the official story that we've been fed the whole time with regards to her is the exact duplicate of the official story that they're trying out for Edithscope for Christiane. So it's literally the same story transposed. That this person died, right? But now we have the face on the one. I'm just saying it's very interesting.
It could be, I guess it's all perception.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, that was my final thought.
Cool.
Not so much that it is. I'm just kind of curious about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I took it as that basically she was a patient who was indebted to the doctor, so she would do anything for him because.
No kidding.
Because he saved her life basically. Because at the end of the day, I mean. I think we're, if you're looking at 1950s post-war Europe,
right.
A beautiful woman's face is her treasure.
Yeah.
It's her future.
Yeah.
I guess if you're an ugly, well, let's face it, even today, if you're an ugly person, I mean, you're, well, no, but it is true. You're kind of counted down sort of thing. I mean, why do you think that people on cameras nowadays, there's all these filters and stuff that make themselves look.
Well, a lot of these people, I don't know why they do it, and I will say something to that effect right now, being a woman. I see so many beautiful girls mask themselves with all these bullshit filters. You don't need all that bullshit. But, some of them are fun, but a lot of them do mask themselves, and they're already beautiful, and there's no reason to hide themselves. That's my 2 cents.
So, Vicky, what are your final thoughts?
I really liked it. I've never seen it before. I'm really digging on all this French and European and German films lately that I've been watching lately because it's such a breath of fresh air because you just grow up in Hollywood. You're not encouraged to go out there and see other films or experience other, what other directors in other countries do, which I find really refreshing. And I thought that the black and white of this was so silver, and so I just thought it was beautifully filmed. And like I said, I was mesmerized by her character with the mask, because the mask almost looked real, but you knew it wasn't. But it seemed like it became part of her, and it was creepy as fuck, but I loved it. But I thought it was an excellent film. It was beautifully done, and it was tasteful as far as its gore, I have to say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, my final thoughts is that there's a lot to watch in this film, and the more you watch it, you do pick up things like the opening scene where they're dispensing the body. And I love that her raincoat is basically, it looks like it's made out of plasticine.
Yeah.
And the water, but the water drips off that. So this is and it's kind of like, this means this is a hard character. This character's heart of heart sort of thing. And then they mainly get Christine and her flowing thingy. And then I also like that it's all about the face. And I love the way that it's filmed, that basically you see from the chest up all the time of the characters. You don't get these long shots really. And basically how the eyes are telling what the real person's like, but their body language is going slightly different from what their eyes are telling them. I can watch this film over and over.
I could too. I love it.
I do watch this film on a yearly basis for some reason. I did buy the Blu-ray, which, because I do like this film. And, and I just think it's one of these films that I think that even for a modern audience, I think there's just so much more that this film just kind of just takes you from you get this kind of weird calliope music, and then all of a sudden you get the picture of the body in the back with the overcoat on, that hat on, and she's driving, and all of a sudden it's just sucking you in, and you're sucked in, and you're kind of glued until the very last frame.
I didn't stop watching it. I barely got up to pee. Seriously, it was so good. I really enjoyed this one. It was fantastic.
And I love a film that haunts you long after you turn it off.
Because you do think about it. It does kind of stay with you, this film does. And then I keep hearing Billy Idol in the back of my head.
Well, that song actually was written because Billy Idol loves this movie. So because of that film,
that's been stuck in my head ever since I watched this movie, that Billy Idol. That was one of his first hits, by the way.
So even 80s... What was he? Punk? 80s pop. I'm gonna call him 80s pop punk because it's like punk for the mass audiences. Pop punk.
Yeah. Everybody can dig on Billy Idol.
So that brings us to the end of our Literary Lessons podcast episode of Les Yeux sans Visage, or AKA Eyes Without a Face. Our next European horror will be The Vanishing, which is the Dutch film. There is the American remake starring Sandra Bullock, but we will not be covering the remake. We're actually covering the original Dutch film, which is actually a lot more sickening than the American remake on a psychological level, that is. Our next episode of the Literary Lessons podcast, of course, will be Dark Shadows, which will be going up to episode 266 to 85. And we will then be going into our next month in June. So make sure you sign up to our website at www.llpodcast.com to our newsletter. And of course, we're available on all our pod media sites. And of course, you can also follow us on social media, which are available on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, and Pinterest. So it's a good night for myself, and good night, Vicky.
Good night, guys.
Good night, Will.
Good night, gang.
And we'll see you next week for Dark Shadows.
This has been a Literary License Podcast production, and this was my will.